go. I want a really nice angle.
And that was Semi Kangela with Holy One, taking us to 13 minutes past 3 on a beautiful Monday, the 8th of February 2021. And Zadie, do you have anything to say about the song?
It's amazing.
Yes, it
He's
is.
stealing the show at the moment.
Getting right into it. So, as we told you earlier on, that today we are joined by the beautiful Jo. Hello, Jo. How are you?
Hello, I'm getting you.
I am fantastic. So, I'm just going to quickly read her bio. So, Jo is a 25-year-old photographer working for an NPO in Port Elizabeth. She has a deep love for music and started singing before she started talking. So much interesting. Even though she had so many wonderful opportunities in singing, none of them has ever felt when she's alone with God on her piano. Worship has taken her on a whole new meaning for her. Her heart is to use music to tell people more about Jesus Christ. And today, Jo is really gracing us with her presence. So starting with my first question, Jo, is I want us to speak about you being a photographer.
A photographer, yes.
Yes.
So actually, I kind of stumbled into it. I didn't actually even think that it would ever be something that I would do. I moved in with one of my best friends, and he has his own creative business.
Yes.
And he one day just said to me, I have a talent and an eye in photography, and basically gave me his camera and said, play around, explore, do whatever you want. And it was like 3-4 years of just taking photos of whatever I could. And sort of employment opportunities just came, and I got gigs, and I got really cool opportunities to photograph weddings and couples and events, and got opportunities to go to Cape Town and shoot there. So it's been really amazing. And actually I'm now employed as a photographer at a charity in PE actually.
Okay.
So yeah.
How does that work? Please elaborate with working for a charity. How does that work?
So we are a feeding scheme charity. So
Yes.
we primarily do feeding the poor and the homeless. We actually used to have a soup kitchen in Central in PE where we would feed up to 200 homeless people every night. We obviously don't do that anymore with COVID. So we've actually now kind of had to adapt and change with the times. So we've now started doing soup kitchens in PE. So we originally had, I think, 25, and now we have 70. So those are soup kitchens in different communities in PE that all then feed their communities. So it's mainly like creches and nursery schools where kids don't have food. And then, yeah, so that's what we do. We do clothing and all sorts of things like that. Basically poverty alleviation projects.
So you are a photographer there.
Yes, so
You take pictures?
so I go into the community. My job is basically to be able to shed light on what's actually happening, because people don't see it, and I think people become numb to it. You know, you in your car, you drive to the robot. There's a homeless man standing there. It's very easy to become numb to that because it's something that you see every day. Whereas I have the opportunity to not only be able to show people this is the face behind the person that you're seeing, or this is the real person behind the face that you're seeing at the robot, but to be able to actually tell stories and to listen to people who are really struggling and people who are suffering, and to be able to give them a voice and to be able to say, what is it that you're actually going through, and what can people do to help you, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if anyone is interested in volunteering there, how do you do?
So they can go to our Facebook page. The charity's name is Love Story. So if you go to Facebook, you type in Love Story, all the contact details are there. And also our Instagram page as well. They can DM, they can message, they can inbox, they can do whatever they want, they can phone. And we're always down to help anyone. So yeah.
So your friend pushed you into the photography, which is now your purpose.
I wouldn't say it's my purpose, no. I would say it's one of my talents and something that I happen to be good at, but
Okay.
I don't think it's my purpose, no. I think the deeper kind of, I think it's kind of like an expression of purpose, if that makes sense.
Okay.
Did you ever struggle financially when you were starting this?
Oh, 100%. I mean, at a stage I was earning 1,000 rand a month. And I had a car, I had to pay for things, and honestly I look back now and I'm like, how on earth did I do that? And it's honestly just God. I can't even tell you how, I don't know how I did it. And over the years, obviously my salary is now better, but in the beginning it was tough times. It was really hard, but you know, made it through. Here we are.
What has photography like taken you? I mean, you've said you went to Cape Town. Where other places have you been to?
So I've only really been to Cape Town. I'm from Pretoria, so I've gone to Pretoria. I've gone to Joburg to photograph there. It's not so much where geographically it's taken me, but more the people that I've been able to meet and the connections that I've made along the way, and what it's taught me about engaging with people. I think in photography, well, my heart in it was always to be able to get someone to be able to catch a side of them that people don't see. And the only way to do that is to be able to unlock vulnerability in that person. And the only way to do that is for myself to be vulnerable. So it's been a really transformative process in being able to meet people and kind of give them permission to be themselves, absolutely themselves. Obviously, you know, I'm a complete stranger, so you maybe don't want to be fully yourself, but I see it as a joy to be able to be around somebody that I don't know and to make them feel like you can absolutely be yourself around me and you can let me see every part of you, and there's no judgment here. In fact, it's beautiful for me. It's something that I want to capture.
You really fit into your job at the moment.
And you
Thank
just
you.
answered my next question. I was going to ask you about your slogan, which is in your Instagram page, on your bio. It is written, "Here to tell your story the way you want it to be told."
Yeah.
And I was going to ask you about that, but you just like summed it up.
Yeah, I think like people are so complex, and we all have stories. Every single one of us have stories and backgrounds and beautiful parts of ourselves that we don't allow people to see because of hurts and rejections and things, the walls that we build up. And so it's easier to hide behind some sort of version of ourselves and to portray that to the world and say, this is who I am. But actually, it's not freeing at all, and it's not what we were made to do. And so I want to be able to go into a space and to say, but actually wait, if I can be fully myself, and that's a journey that goes on for the rest of our lives. If I can be fully myself, you should be able to be fully yourself as well. And hopefully the way that I'm portraying myself makes you feel safe enough to be fully yourself as well.
Yes, you remind me of something. Whenever I look at pictures, pictures are not only defining the memories that we shared. You get to feel what you felt. When even if you're sad, and you get to look at a picture when you're so happy and you're like, you get into that.
Yeah, 100%.
What have been some of the what have been some of your highlights of being a photographer?
I think on a professional kind of career level, it's been being able to book bigger, sort of higher profile events. So I've been fortunate enough to have really nice weddings that I've been able to do. In terms of like a career goal, that was always something that I wanted to do, to be able to really shoot a wedding well. Jeepers, if I look back to my first wedding that I shot, it is embarrassing. Like, I don't even want to like say that was my work. And so I always felt like in the beginning I wanted to work towards being able to refine my skill and my craft for people to want to book me. My first wedding, I knew the couple. They were one of my really good friends, and they'd come to plant church here. And I basically said to them, "Oh, I'll do your wedding for free. You don't even have to pay me," because I wanted to basically build a profile. Shame, I feel so bad. Basically did their wedding, and I was like, I look back now and I'm like, shame. Like, I wish I could go back and do it again, because now it's like years later, and I've like been able to book more weddings, but proper weddings where I have, I'm confident. I back myself as a photographer. I'm much more professional in the way that I deal with clients and my equipment and stuff like that. So I think for me, it has been completely a God thing, and even just my equipment that I've had. I mean, I've never had the finances to be able to pay for my own stuff, and it's been incredible how that's sort of just been given to me. And I think for me that's probably been the biggest highlight, is being able to have seen God's hand of provision, enabling me to be more professional, enabling me to book more clients, to actually see that He cares about my business as much as I do, if that makes sense.
Do you have an emotional attachment to each photo you take of a couple or something?
I wouldn't say I have an emotional attachment to the photo. I like being able to capture an emotion that is relatively unseen, if that makes sense. So being able to encapsulate a moment or an emotion through photography, being able to portray a feeling that can't be put into words, that is only explanatory through a photo. You look at a photo and you're like, I felt that before, I know what that feels like. And the only way you know that is because I've captured it. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So, yeah, so that for me is more my passion, is being able to put to visually, I don't know if that's not English, but to be able to visually express an emotion that you otherwise couldn't explain.
That makes sense, because when I was going through your Instagram feed, I saw this wonderful photo of a couple, like their foreheads are touching and the light is shining through. I felt like they're actually so in love.
Oh yeah, that's amazing.
I felt so jealous.
I know. Even me, I'm jealous. Like when I'm shooting, I'm like, oh, fudge, I wish I could feel like that.
I want to ask, with your first wedding, with your first gig, your very first gig, what do you wish like someone would have told you, like an advice? And now you're going to tell that advice to someone who is aspiring to become a photographer.
I definitely would have, on a personal sort of level, I would have said, back yourself. I think when I was starting, I didn't have any confidence in myself, didn't believe in my gifting and my talent to be able to create work that I was proud of. Kind of wish there were some people around me to champion me and to say, no, but you're really talented and your gifting, it speaks for itself. I never had that. And so I feel like if I could go back to younger me, I would have said, back yourself. I mean, it's literally the one thing that dictates, it sets the atmosphere for a room. If you're meeting with clients and you walk into a room and you're unsure of yourself, they'll immediately pick it up. It's if they can see you're not confident in yourself, how are they meant to trust you? But if I trust myself and I'm like, no, but I'm actually very good at my job and I can do this well, then immediately the client feels comfortable. And they're like, okay, cool, I can use you because she backs herself.
Confidence is key.
Exactly.
Where can we find our listeners, maybe they want to take some photos, how can they contact you?
So they can go, I have a Facebook page and an Instagram page. So they can go onto Instagram. I don't know if they'll know how to spell my surname because nobody does.
Please spell it out.
So my name is Jo Bandenhorst, but Bandenhorst. So it's Jo Bandenhorst Photography. That is my Instagram page and my Facebook page. So yeah, hit me up.
Thank
Okay.
you. Sure
Hopefully people are going to
Yeah, hopefully.
and your DM is going to go crazy. So I want us to talk about you as you play piano, right?
I do.
And I want us to talk about something that you wrote in your bio. So in your bio, you said that none of the previous opportunities that you got singing, none of them beats the one when you are alone with God.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that. Because I also find my relationship with God so sacred. Like, I can't share it with others.
Yeah.
And some individuals don't understand that. I
Sure,
don't know
that's
how.
amazing.
Yeah, so I want us to talk about you worshiping God alone.
She was hinting there.
So, sure, how do I condense this into one? So yeah, like I said, I've been singing my whole life.
Yes.
And I actually had hectic stage fright for a really long time. I was incredibly shy, like I couldn't talk to anyone. And when I was in high school, my mom forced me into singing lessons, not to teach me how to sing, but to teach me to be confident and to perform. And so basically got thrust into that, thrown in the deep end. And through my singing coach, I got opportunities to sing. I competed in a whole bunch of competitions, and I went to the South African Talent Championships. And I went every year from grade 9 up until matric. And I think it gave me a lot of confidence in myself and my gifting. But I did that for so long, and it was so second nature to me. I was obviously always nervous to perform, but it wasn't something that I felt like I'm purposed for. And so that was quite confusing for me, because everyone told me my whole life I was going to be a singer. It was like, you're going to be a singer, you're so good, this is what you're going to do. And I remember telling my mom one day, I don't want to be a singer. I don't want to like have records and CDs, and I don't want to be performing. That was never something that I felt like I wanted to do. And at the time I didn't know God, so I had no other sort of direction, but I just knew that wasn't what I wanted. And then when I moved to PE, I moved when I was 21, and that was when I started singing worship. Kind of found God that way and started doing worship. And I felt like, for the first time, I felt like I was purposed, and it felt like I can do this, but not a thing of like a profession, but I knew I was meant for this. As soon as I started worshiping, I was like, no, but this all makes sense to me now. This is what I was created for. I was created to worship. I now know why I have my gifting. And it transcended from gifting to intimacy. I think for so long, I mean, even worshiping in church and being a worship leader, a lot of emphasis for me was placed on, being perfect on a Sunday. And when you're leading worship, the logistics around leading worship and the schedule, and it became sort of like a performance and not necessarily get up there and connect with God. I felt like it was void of Him. And so I actually ended up leaving for 3 years. I just stopped going to church, and I felt like I was at home alone. Those 3 years were completely transformative for me. I literally became a different person. And I felt like in those 3 years, God said to me very clearly, I'm going to teach you what real worship is, what worship is really about. And I taught myself in those 3 years how to play piano. My mom's a piano teacher, and she tried her whole life to teach me. And I literally just rejected her every time. I was like, I don't want to learn. It's too much effort. And so for 3 years, when I was 21, I basically had this piano in our house, and I was like, no one's using it. And I feel like I want to be able to put music to the songs in my head. And so I sat down, and basically for 3 years, I just discovered worship and found Jesus in a very, very real way, in a way that completely transformed me. It was a very tangible experience for me, very tangible.
What does worship mean to you?
So I think, actually one of my friends asked me this yesterday. Worship for me is ultimately connection. That's all it is. It's connecting with Him, and it is our purpose. That's what we were made for. Our purpose was to worship, but I think society and the world has confined it to looking a certain way. If you can play an instrument, if you can sing, you're a worshiper, which is so far from the truth. Worship is an expression of love. That's all it is. So whether I am a domestic worker, whether I'm a photographer, whether I'm a businessman, everything that I put my hands to is worship. If I'm expressing my reverence for God, that's worship. If I'm doing my job to the best of my ability and I'm doing it out of reverence for Him, it's worship. And so I think worship finds its expression in everything that we do, every single thing that we do. For me, that's basically what the past few years have been, for God to separate me from singing, to separate me from music, to separate me from a performance, to say, but actually, Joe, worship is so different from what you thought it was. Worship is a way of living. Worship is an expression of love. Do you know what that is? And for me to be able to have the freedom to explore that, to say, okay, God, I have no idea what that looks like, but to find Him in everything that I do, to find Him in the smallest details, and to know this is what I was made for, is just to be with you in every single thing that I do, which I think is, I would say that's what we were purposed for, to be close to Him in everything that we do.
It's a lovely explanation.
Thank you.
So you said that you only found God a few years ago.
Yeah.
How did you find Him?
So I actually grew up in the church. My mother is a very talented piano player, very, very good musician. She plays every freaking instrument you can imagine. And basically grew up in the church, went to all the sermons and the worship things and ran around on stage and did all the things. So the idea of church, or church itself, or the idea of God wasn't foreign to me. I never grew up not knowing whether He was real or anything like that. I always kind of had the belief. And then when I turned 21, I mean, there were a series of just mistakes that I'd made in my life, and like kind of a lot of heartbreaks, and I felt like it had to end, and I was exhausted. It sounds really hectic to say because I was only 21. But I was genuinely exhausted. I was so tired of chasing a feeling, so tired of wanting to belong and feeling like I wanted to be accepted. And I was at home, I was visiting my dad, and I remember one day I just decided I can't do this anymore. And I remember sitting on a rock in the middle of nowhere and just saying, God, I know that you're it for me. I don't know anything about you, because I really didn't. I had no point of reference for what he was really like. And I was like, I don't know anything about you, but I know that you are the thing that I'm searching for. Through my entire life, through chasing feelings and things and feeling like I'm never going to be accepted, you are the only one that can change that. That's all I know. I don't know anything else except for that. And I just really felt like I needed him to rescue me from myself, because I just felt like I couldn't bear the pain of who I was at that time. And my life literally changed overnight, and it was a journey of, I always felt like I never wanted to know him the way everyone else did, and I always felt like the way everyone else knew him wasn't who he really was. And I know that that's a really big thing to say, but I looked at the way people expressed their relationship with God and the way that they portrayed him, and I didn't know him, I didn't know anything about him, but I felt in me that cannot be what he is like. That can't be what he is like, because if that's what he is like, I don't want that. I don't want him. I don't want religion. I don't want any of it. And so I felt like, God, if I'm doing this, I have to know who you really are. And I have to, there has to be something real for me, because if there isn't, I'm not going to hold on. I can't be here. And so, it's been years of God kind of revealing himself to me in a way that I really don't believe many people experience. And I only think it's because of the desire and the kind of hunger to know him in a very real way. Because I think the one thing that I think is wrong with not humanity but with people is that nobody desires to know him for what he's really like. We just accept this religious portrayal of who he is, and we just go, well, that's what he is, that's what he's like. And there's so much criticism of God, and we just accept it, and we go, okay, well, that's what it is. But actually nobody's stopping and going, but there's something wrong with that. Why is nobody asking questions? Why is nobody saying, what is he really like? Do you know what I'm saying?
Understanding.
I feel like I relate to you more. I feel like you are my soul sister. I relate to you on a spiritual level, because I also have a relationship with God that is personal to me. As I said, my relationship with God, it's sacred.
Yeah.
Other people will never understand, and I've also found God in experiences that I went through, and then I found him there.
Yeah.
And God has always been with us, but it takes time and maturity for you to reach out to God, because God is everywhere.
Yeah.
Yes, and I feel like I relate to you more.
When did you notice God was in your life? Was it like an experience that happened?
What a question. That is hectic. When did I notice he was in my life? Sure. I think I always had the kind of, it wasn't a personal knowledge, but I always was like, he's there. He's always there. I think when he became extremely personal to me was, never really told anyone this. I can't remember how long. I think it was the year I got saved. I was 21, and one of my friends in church, she was this kind of prophetic powerhouse, and she was the one that was the dreamer. And if anyone wanted to encounter God, they would just go to her, because she was like the one who encountered God all the time. Lovely human being, I love her. And I was so jealous. I looked at her and I was like, I want to encounter God like that. And obviously very, very small thinking, but at the time that was what I wanted. And in my life at that stage, I was going through a lot of confusion with Jesus, and I didn't know what was real, didn't know who he was, didn't know what to believe. But knew that I wanted something solid. And I remember I was at my friend's house, and I remembered we were talking about it in the car on the way to her house, and I said to her, I would love for God to speak to me audibly. I would love to hear the audible voice of God. I've never heard the audible voice of God. And I was like, how amazing that she's heard the audible voice of God. He's like came to her in a dream. And I was like, that's amazing. You always hear these supernatural things, and like, I want that to happen to me. And kind of spoke about it, went back and forth, and we laughed about it, and we're like, great. And that I, again, sort of had no, I just sort of started coming to Jesus, had no point of reference as to who he was or anything like that. And I ended up having a dream that night, and he spoke to me incredibly audibly, but in a way, basically, like I said, I've never told anyone this, so it's very, no, people won't really understand, but basically he spoke to me. I was this little girl. I was like 7 years old. I became this little person, and God said to me, Joanne, how are you doing? And I couldn't breathe, first of all. I just couldn't breathe. And I remember thinking to myself, why on earth are you asking me how I'm doing? You're God. Like, you know me. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. And literally said to me again, how are you doing? And I just started crying, like weeping in this dream. And he became huge, like massive. Like, think of the biggest thing you've ever seen in your life. It was like I was an ant, and he was just this monumental force that was just standing. And in the dream, I was this little girl, and I grabbed his leg, and I held onto his leg, and I kept saying, Daddy, 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 I love you. And he started laughing, just laughed and laughed and laughed. Sorry, I don't want to cry. But he laughed, and I woke up, and my friend came into my room literally right then, and she looked at me, and she was like, you're pale. She's like, you're white as a ghost. And I was like, I think God just spoke to me audibly. Couldn't believe it. And she was like, what did he say? What did he say? And I was like, he asked me how I'm doing. I was like, what? Who does that? And I couldn't believe that had happened to me, first of all. But secondly, it sat with me for like weeks afterwards. And I realized in that moment, when I had that encounter with God, he gave me such an incredible revelation of, he's a father. He came to me and he asked me how I'm doing. Like, who does that? Who does? What kind of a God comes to you and says, how are you doing? Who knows you? Who knows everything you're ever going to go through? Came to me as dad, and at the time I really needed a dad. Came to me as dad and said, how are you doing? And completely overwhelmed me. And in that moment, I knew, first of all, that he was real. I couldn't... It was undeniable for me. I was absolutely convicted of the realness of who he was. And I was undeniably convicted that he was a father. That to me was it. I was like, I don't need to know anything beyond this, besides the fact that you came to me exactly as what you are, as dad. I felt, when I had that encounter, I knew this is it. This is all it's ever going to be. There's nothing outside of this. There's nothing outside of the revelation of he's dad. And so that to me was the most powerful encounter I've ever had with him, ever, for the rest of my life. That will be it for me. Not the encounter itself, but that feeling, that absolute conviction of, oh my word, he's dad. He is dad. There's no one else. There's just no one else.
Wow, it's an amazing dream.
Yeah, it was a crazy encounter. Yeah.
I've never heard one like that
Sure.
before.
And I was also so shocked.
It's quite an emotional dream as well.
It was, yeah. It was. I'm not even lying when I say it changed me forever. From that point on, it changed the way I approached him. It had changed the way I viewed him. It changed the way I spoke to him. I wasn't scared of him anymore. I never felt like he didn't understand me. I felt like his absolute motivation in everything was to understand me. It was always to receive me in my confusion, in my pain, in my sin. Everything was always to receive me and to ask me, how are you doing? How are you doing?
Caring at the end of the day.
Hey?
Just caring. Like
100%.
It reminds me of something I've read. I don't know when was that. It speaks about why do we pray when God knows what we want.
Mm.
And God asked you, how are you doing? Knowing well, how are you doing?
Exactly.
Yes, it speaks sense to the fact that we need to pray and request to God. He knows what we want, but we basically have to voice out what we want.
Exactly.
Yes. So we're going to ask you, what are your future plans?
My future plans. Sure. I would love to be able to advance my career in photography. I would love to be able to do that. I'm fascinated with fashion photography, and concept photography, being able to go in with a concept and bring that to life, for me is exhilarating. I love it. I would love to be able to go into that. Obviously, I don't know when that will happen. But yeah, I would love to be able to do that, and I'm actually studying to do psychology. So I want to be able to qualify as a psychologist, a fully qualified psychologist. That's going to take a while, though. It's going to take a long time.
7 years. How far are you studying?
I'm already 4 years in, so hopefully not too much longer. But yeah, I'd love to be able to do that. And yeah, I think I'm not a planner at all. You've never met someone who's not more of a planner than me.
I think God does all the planning for you.
I've always been a crazy dreamer. I've never been the type of person that kind of had a set thing for my life, much to my parents' disappointment. They always wanted me to be someone that was together, in the sense of having a vision, but I was always all over the place and was kind of like, oh, wherever you want, God, I'll go wherever you want. But in the last year, I've become a lot more structured in the sense of I actually have goals to work towards and things that I want for my life. So I would, career-wise, I would love to be able to be more of an established photographer. I would love to be able to do the things that I'm passionate about and kind of bring a sort of new creativity to photography and give other people permission to do the same. I think, especially in the entertainment industry, it's so saturated and everyone's doing the same thing that everyone else is doing and no one's doing their own thing. And I think it's another thing is people don't back themselves and they don't think that what they have to contribute matters because it's just everyone's doing it. But I think to be able to come with a creative sort of conviction to say this is what the change that I want to effect in the entertainment industry, you can do it. A few years ago I wouldn't have thought that I could do that, but now I'm in a place where I'm like, actually I want to do it. It's not even a thing of I have to, I want to. There's a desire in me to be able to bring a new sort of creative fresh air to photography. So I would love to do that. But yeah, other than that, I have no plans. I'll just take it as it comes.
God will provide.
How has COVID affected your photography business?
So crazy. I made the most money I've ever made.
Really?
Started my business. I was always a freelancer, always kind of like just did whatever popped up. And then last year, literally as COVID happened, I decided, maybe I should start actually taking myself seriously and doing something to make money, and made the most money I've ever made. It was amazing to see how that actually happened. Can't even explain. But yeah, I started putting myself out there, started marketing myself, started not necessarily even going after paid gigs. I would do things just for the plain enjoyment of doing it. So I would call up some friends, call up some models and be like, hey, I've got this crazy idea. I want to be able to shoot this. I want to bring this concept to life. Are you down? Can you do it? And people were always down to do it, and we had so much fun. And I think I feel like that was the thing that kind of propelled me, because I didn't go in wanting to make money. I just wanted to be able to refine my craft, and I wanted to do the thing that I loved. I knew I loved photography, I knew I loved people, I knew I loved having fun. So why not just mash it all together? And it was amazing to see how that kind of bore fruit and ended up making money. Got gigs, word of mouth, people would recommend me, companies contacted me, got weddings, like just crazy things that I never thought would happen so quickly. And it all sort of just was a snowball effect. So yeah, it was actually really amazing for me. Yeah.
I don't think most people can say that.
No, I know. I know, which is really sad. But yeah, it was such a God thing though. From beginning, I mean, even the way I got my equipment it was literally all God. And it happened in the space of a month. So yeah, I continuously prayed over it. Continuously was like, God, this matters to me. I really want to make it work. And I think as soon as you start putting effort into something, He kind of rewards you for that. Because I think for so many of us, we sit back and we go, oh, God will open all the doors and He'll do all the things. But actually sometimes He requires you to get up and to chase after your passions, to chase after your dreams, so that when you have what you wanted, it's so much more rewarding. Because you're like, oh, I gave something to this. It wasn't handed to me. He didn't just open the door. It was something that He kind of like walked me through. Because in that you learn confidence. You learn how to deal with people. You learn how to run a business. Like, it all happens.
Experience.
Yeah, it all happens in that process. And if he just gave things to us, we would never learn. We would never grow. So, yeah, I think for me that was pretty powerful for me. It wasn't even so much the money. It was more like what he was doing for me personally in terms of, like, as a business person.
Do you have any last words you want to say to?
Jeepers.
We've been speaking for like over half an hour.
Oh, sorry. I do talk a lot. I have been
nice.
told. Very talkative. No, I don't think I do. It feels so cliche. Like, follow your dreams. No. I don't think I have anything really to say in the sense of anything like that. But I think, maybe to really, not even during COVID, because I think during COVID, so many people, even my housemate said to me when COVID happened, she was like, God is isolating people unto himself and bringing them closer to him. And I felt like, but why stop the entire world to do that? That shouldn't be a thing. That should be that should be what we're already doing. For people to, for the first time in their life, encounter God outside of a building during COVID, monumental, amazing, but that should be something that we're doing all the time. And that I can encounter God incredibly powerfully through connecting with you. I can encounter him incredibly powerfully sitting here in my car, listening to a podcast, writing, doing my varsity work. Like, that for me has been the biggest lesson, I think, in COVID. What was, he shouldn't have to stop the world, and I don't think he even did stop the world for people to encounter him. My desire is that people would know that he's incredibly close and so tangible in the smallest of moments, in everything. If we're willing to listen and stop and to actually say, where are you? And I want to know you. And he always responds to that. I think people aren't hungry enough, and people aren't desirous enough. And the fact of the matter is, we're all going to stand before him one day. Every single one of us. Every single person's going to stand before him one day and account for their hearts. Nothing else. Nothing else is going to matter except your heart. And what did I spend my time on earth doing? What did I do? What was important to me? Was he everything? Because if he wasn't everything, it was a complete waste of time. I was a waste of time. Because I was created for him. So I think to be able to realize that he's all we were created for. And he's not the big grand moments. Yes, he is enormous and he's amazing and glorious, but he is just as powerful and weighty in the small things, in the small decisions, in the small conversations, the small moments. He's just as big there.
Scary. It's very scary that everything we do on earth we're going to be counted for at the end of the day. Or not at the end of the day, at the end of our lives. Better start doing good deeds, everyone.
So, Joanne, I would like for you to remind people where to get you on social media in case there's someone who needs a photographer for Valentine's Day.
Oh yes, that is coming up.
Might get booked.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Jo, J-O, and my surname is Bandenhorst, B-A-D-E-N-H-O-R-S-T. And you can type that, Jo Bandenhorst Photography, in Instagram.
It's one of the first things that pop up, we make sure.
Or Facebook, and I am there. And then you can just drop me a message.
Oh, please do support her. She's awesome.
Thank you. Thank
Very
you for
lovely.
having me.
And all the best with your psychology qualification.
Thank you.
And please, I feel like I want to be your first patient.
100%. Years from now, you can phone me and I'll remember you.
Okay, that was Joanne. Such a lovely interview with her. And now we're going to play Wave City by Isaki June. I am serious, like...